Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And this could be a pretty interesting week considering the roadmap for fall, winter and early spring that CCP has basically announced about where they're going with the game. So in short, we won't see the Citadels until early spring. That's now their target date for the next expansion. But they actually have quite a lot planned before that, including new destroyers. So honestly, this should keep us quite busy until the Citadels actually come out. Of course, we are here for the market, and I'll jump right in here with the plex market, which I think a lot of people will be sort of happy with this. At 50 seconds, we can see that plex went down substantially. They're down to 1.114 billion ISK. Maybe the buy online button has something to do with it, but in all likeliness, it's just a plex sale that's happening at the moment. The question is, of course, when will that end and how low can they go? If this downward trend can also be ridden by a wave of some new interest due to the roadmap that was released, some new excitement into the game, maybe we could go a little bit lower. But I'm thinking if the sellers ever get below 1 billion, then I'm probably going to go in with like half my money or something like that, because at some point we will see this go back up drastically. But yeah, plex taking a bit of a tumble here. They definitely broke 20-day moving average and now does seemingly have a little bit of a momentum on a downward trend here. We'll see how low they will go, but slightly better news for people that want to plex their accounts, I think. Multiple pilot training certificates following a very similar pattern, although maybe just a little bit more slowly, down to 1.15 billion, just above that on the chart. Let me see here, 1173, so still a little bit higher than plex, lagging behind a little bit. That could be a slight indication that maybe it is also CCP intervening in the plex market, because otherwise I think people would very closely try to take advantage of the difference between plex and between the pilot training certificates. So the chart is decently close, but multiple pilot training certificates, a much smaller market trailing behind on plex, could be an indication that CCP is also intervening a little bit in the market. Of course, we don't know for sure. Probably at the next FanFest we might get some more information on that. And then a quick look at the body resculpt, which is doing the exact opposite, once again showing its own little market here, going up as the others are going down, which is a little bit unusual, but 260 million for a body resculpt. It's really something cosmetic that I think is not used that very often. Anyways, that's pretty good news for plex in my personal book. Let's move on to some minerals, 320 for that one. And let's see if we can find some interesting stuff here. And I think we can. Here is titanium. And clearly still going up almost to 6.2 ISK on the chart, 6.10 for the 5-day moving average. And you can see that we have retraced back the ground we lost 6 months ago. Let's go for the 1-year chart. We're practically there. We're practically back at 6.20, where titanium was trading for a little bit after the very sharp drop off due to the mineral rebalance. So one thing that I saw it in a comment, maybe on Reddit. I think it was a comment where If Prosper made some comments about what was happening in the mineral market, and it looks like to get the industrial indices up in their systems, people are over mining the nullsic minerals at the moment, and that this is why everything is rebalancing back to the situation of before the changes to minerals in nullsic. So very good news for the highsic miners, I would say. Titanium back up to 6.10. I'm happy that I made some investments early on here, yeah, considering how far off these citadels will be now, I wonder if this will all stall, or maybe even pull back a little bit. That's, I think, what we need to watch out for. Is this all a story around the citadels, or is this just basic mineral market activity due to as I said, possibly some overmining of nullsec minerals in nullsec, and thus highsec activity lagged behind a little bit, and they needed to, the price needed to stabilize or to keep all of that into account once again, and thus we see this great increase, this complete retracing of the price of titanium from 6 months ago. Let's see what pyrite's been doing. A little bit more hesitant here for pyrite, tried to get up to 11.8, now going back down a little bit. Let's see if there's like an oversupply situation. Not really, but I guess there's not really any big buy orders coming in here anymore, and it's this really big one of 1.6 billion units at 11.22 that's keeping the price of pyrite up at the moment. But yeah, the supply is still flowing in quite nicely. Pretty much the entire front page is less than 24 hours old, but it's this huge order that is stopping pyrite from dropping back off. So interesting how that one is doing something completely different. Next up, we've got Mexalon, and that one is going up to 70 ISK. That's quite substantial again. Very steep rise of Mexalon. We're at 68 for the sellers, 65 for the buyers, something like that. Margin is actually decent. We've seen much smaller margins here, and I think the comment on Mexalon was that it is a bottleneck when it comes to maybe the amount mined, but especially to the volume that it takes to move Mexalon around, and that this is why Mexalon for the highsec minerals is the one that's moving up the most. And if we go for the 1 year chart, you can see that again we did retrace this, but we actually retraced back to a year ago when Mexalon was very high. Then it came back down to 60 where it traded for a while. Then here we have the mineral rebalance dropping down to 40 to 45, something like that, and now retraced all of that in a matter of just a few months, I think. August and September went all the way back up to 70. So if you bought minerals here, which I did, not that much, but still I invested quite a bit of ISK in that, then that was a very good deal. The question is, of course, is it time to sell now? And of that I'm not 100% sure, considering that we will have the citadels in a very big way now. Let's take a quick look at Isogen here, also pretty much retracing everything from 6 months ago. So very good news, but keep this in mind. The expansion, sure, it's pushed back to the spring, but it will have the Excel citadels, it will have all of the modules, all of the weapons. That will be, if it is indeed mineral production that's required for this, and I think it will be, then that could be absolutely huge in the amount of minerals that will be needed, that will be in demand when that expansion hits. So I think keep that in mind if you're thinking of selling minerals at the moment. You may be lucky with a little cycle, but if you time it wrongly, then it could be better to just hold on to everything. And so, except for pyrite, all of the highsec minerals are doing pretty damn well. Isogen still has a little bit to go. Again, I would like to see it closer to 125 to say that we're back at the same profits per hour for highsec miners, but it's definitely come out of its slump, out of its bottom of 100 ISK. So pretty good news, I would say, for highsec miners here. Let's take a look at Noxium, the in-between one. I think that the story here is definitely true, that nullsec may be over mining these minerals, and that this is why Noxium, although it can also be mined in highsec, is having that really big pressure. And that's basically a double whammy for Noxium, because it was already going down on the mineral changes before, but now it has that nullsec pressure on there as well with some oversupply, and so we're again closing in on 480, which is very close to the previous bottom. So Noxium is really very, very low at the moment, but if it is being overmined, there is no telling how long this could last. You know, that it's not like this is a definite goodbye at the moment. It's very difficult to say that. I think longer term, medium term, this is probably a goodbye. If you need Noxium in the citadels, that will go up in value and could go up in value quite violently considering how low it is. But you never know because of the Nasdaq overmining situation, which I think could definitely be true. So let's take a look at those. Here is Zydrine finally stabilizing at around 1100 ISK. Let's go for a 1 year chart. Obviously that's still pretty much double what we had before the mineral changes, but it is definitely better than the 1600, which was its top. I think that the Nasdaq situation is, the Nasdaq mineral situation is finding its balance finally, but it's pretty obvious by now that we had an overreaction when everything first hits the market. Next up here we've got Megasite, still has a little bit of downward momentum, broke 1500, so it could be that 1400 is going to be the floor for Megasite. So I feel pretty okay. I did buy a little bit of Megasite and Zydrine at these prices as well. I wanted a good mix of minerals to be ready, just in case there was something still happening with Citadels this year. But now I think I'm in a much better position to go in and buy some Megasite and buy some Zydrine, because these are much more reasonable prices considering the entire situation at the moment. And then finally for minerals we've got Morphite, which is holding quite steady at above 12,000 ISK, except for the very bottom data point here. It's just one seller coming in, so I actually think that will be okay on Morphite, which is a little bit surprising. You would think that could be overmined just as the other minerals were, but maybe because this is related, I think, to Tech 2 production, there could be more demand for this, and so yeah, this Morphite apparently is the winner for the minerals, but it is completely different from all of the other ones here, because that one has managed to maintain its increase in price here for very nicely, despite everything that's happened to Zydrine and to Megasite here, that correction. So let's move on to Tech 1 chips. Let's see if there's been an impact on the Tech 1 market by now. 1145 for that one, and yeah, I'll just go over them here. Because I honestly think that this means that we're still in a stable situation. You know, Nasdaq minerals became very high. HiSec dropped off drastically, but HiSec pretty much retraced all of that, and Nasdaq dropped back quite a bit. Consider the amount of extra Nasdaq minerals you need to produce stuff. I think overall we're still looking okay, maybe slightly higher prices than 6 months ago, which here for the Armageddon is apparently definitely true, but overall we should still be pretty stable, because a lot of those forces will be cancelling each other out when it comes to Tech 1 production. And again, I think the bigger the ship, the bigger the impact on the increase in price because of the needed extra materials from nullsec. But here is the Armageddon holding at 202 million, so 200 for a battleship seems pretty good and decently stable. A band of 198 to 202 million is really not that much variation for pretty much 2 weeks of movement. Looks quite okay. Here is the Caracal then, moving at 12 million. Again, this band, you know, it looks pretty violent, but it is from 11 million to 13 million is the biggest swing over the last 6 months, and it's usually just staying between 11.5 and 12 million where you'll find a price. And so the Caracal is up a little bit. I think if we go back from before the last 6 months, I could maybe do it for the 1 year chart just to show that we did indeed increase in price slightly due to the mineral changes, which are right around here at April. But it's nothing too drastic. It's nothing that's gonna break the Tech 1 market. Here's the Dominics then. Maybe you can see right here that we did move around to 190, maybe a bit closer to that, but generally pretty stable. Dominics here going up towards 200 million at the tail end. 200 million for a battleship seems to be the current price, and I'm actually quite okay with that. Here is the Drake then, knew a very big spike last week. That's dropping off, so we should see some supply coming in here. That's less than a day old, so we've got 15 here, another 11, 8, 13, 10, 15. So again, whenever Tech 1 market sees an opportunity with higher prices, there is enough production capability that gets moved to that product to keep everything in check, so that we don't get too crazy situations in the Tech 1 market. Here's the Drake falling back. Next up here we've got the Mauler. That one's been extremely stable over the last 6 to 8 months or something like that. Now it's just edging above 11.5 million, where it used to be 11 million. Could be that it's gonna stay there just because it's a little bit more expensive to produce molars. Here's the Myrmidon then. That one has known quite a bit of volatility and now moving up again in a double spike, reaching 60 million, dropping back off. Could this be due to the Battlecruiser rebalance? It is possible. Myrmidon could have just become that little bit better to give it an edge. So 59 mil for the sellers, 53 for the buyers. There's still a bit of a gap. Supply is definitely coming in. Look at that. More than the front page. Is less than 24 hours old. You've got 44 of them here, 30 of them here. So the competition is happening right here on the sell orders market. This is gonna put a little bit of pressure. The question is, will we fall back towards like 54, which I would say has been an average price for Myrmidon for quite a while. Hopefully we will see that, because I do like to see my Tech 1 market pretty stable. Next up here we've got the Oracle, also knowing quite a bit of a spike here, up to 90 million, but already dropping back down. Has the supply response coming in? It's starting to 14 here, and then 1, 1, 1, 1, but another 5, 8, 8 again. All of them competing for those better prices for the Oracle. It's once again going to put that pressure on here. I'm curious to see if we'll drop to 80 once again. Next up here we've got the Raven. That one again doing a bit of a double hop here. That is clearly a break in the trend, where we used to be at around 180 for a Raven. We're now heading towards 200 million, which honestly is just bringing the Raven in line with the other battleships. So I think that this could be a normal situation, considering how low the Raven was. There's still not that much supply, but people are just not willing to get rid of their Ravens below 200 million or by a big margin below 200 million anymore. I guess maybe some people did look at my previous EVE talk, because I clearly noticed that disparity between the Raven and some of the other battleships. So could be some big investor trying to bring all the battleships in line or something like that. But despite the fact that clearly we've gone up quite a bit in price, this is not completely out of line because of how low the Raven has been for quite a while. Next up here we've got the Stabber, showing that stability, also clearly showing that that slight increase in price since the mineral rebalance, because before this we were clearly between the 10 to 10.5 million band. Then we have this volatility right around the mineral changes, and now we're stable again in the 10.5 to 11 million band. So still pretty close. It's probably just maybe 500,000 ISK or a bit less than that on average that's added, but that slight increase in price is here very noticeable on this chart. This part here just below, and then this part here just above the 10.5 million mark. Very interesting, and the Stabber showing how everything has been playing out here. Next up, the Tornado, settling towards 76 million, data point at 80. That's a bit surprising. Again, we're empty of tornadoes, so if you have any, if you can produce at on short notice, this could be a good time to get some nice profits off of some tornadoes. Someone bought all of them out. But I think by next week we'll see this gap plugged pretty quickly, and it does look like maybe some nullsec alliances are really gearing up for a major war, maybe this winter or something like that, and that they're just starting to build huge fleets in preparation for something very big. It would be very good for the game, I think. So let's all hope for a big winter war. Would be awesome. It's been a while. Next up here we've got the Typhoon, also working its way up a little bit, not as drastically as the Raven, but again keep in mind 175 for a Typhoon is pretty low, so I do think that Typhoon has a bit of margin to go up when it comes to just buying a battleship, because this is quite a bit lower than all of the other battleships at the moment. And finally here is the Vexor, also doing a little bit bounce up to 12.5, settling back down below 12, and then working on the double spike. But is that being plugged by supply? Not that much just yet. You see just a little bit here coming in at almost 13 million. So I'd say Vexors, you could make some money on that. I think I have some Vexors lying around, so I could bring those to Jita. And then the Oracle, probably a little bit too late for that, considering how much is coming in. But the Tornado, we're empty of tornadoes, except for a few really big orders at very opportunistic prices. So tornadoes, Vexors, you could do pretty well, I think, on your margins there, if you can bring them to the market at short notice. Next up, the tech tool market, 1930. Let us see if we can find some trade opportunities, because last week there was not that much going on. And here's the basilisk again bouncing off of the 180 up to the 200, which it's not that bad. It's more than 10%, but I think we're already done for that. Yeah, exactly. Look at the volumes that are coming in here below 200 million, trying to sell them. So that spike is over. Unfortunately, considering the previous spikes, it's just been smaller, and so I would not have gambled on this one. I would not have gambled on this bottom either. I would have liked to see it close to 170. Then you're much more certain to have a good profit on your trade. But it did happen here. Possible 10% profit you could have taken here, but I would not have made a move on this one, to be honest. Here's the Cerberus moving ever lower, breaking 190. Let's see where the buyers are at 182. This is coming into interesting territory, although keep in mind we have seen them go as low as 170 as well. So if there's a bit of pressure on this, then that could be interesting. One thing to keep in mind, I think the Cerberus has been flown in doctrines quite a bit, and so you could see a big buyout of this all of a sudden when a Nausicaa Alliance like loses a big fleet or something like that. So I think Cerberus you could risk an investment if you really have the ISK and you don't know what to do with it at the moment. Here's the Enyo 10, the assault frigates. I think at some point I'm just going to remove them because they are too stable. I don't see any trade money to be made on a chart like this. Next up, we've got the Guardian. That spike, you know, that's absolutely awesome. Went down to 130. Did I say maybe you could buy some Guardians? I don't know. Buy orders are still at 130, sellers up to 145. So that's more than a 10% jump here already. If this has some momentum, because people might want to buy some Guardians, then maybe due to the Amar championships or something like that, then this could go a little bit higher. Supply here is pretty high though, 22, 12 here, 15. So we definitely have like 100 of them, 50 on the volumes here on average. We're probably too late, but yeah, you could have bought Guardians for 130 and at the moment you can sell them for 145, which is a decent profit. So again, showing a little bit of trade potential in the logistics cruisers, but a little bit too timid for my taste. Here's the Hound then, also working its way up after breaking 17 million. We're currently selling them for 18 million to 18.5 million, which is coming into interesting territory. If you could have bought them for 16 million, then that's starting to be okay. There's still decent supply, but a lot of this is old. So yeah, you could still, I think, buy a couple of Hounds close to 16 million. That would not be so bad. And then wait for the next opportunity, perhaps. Here's the Ishtar then, working on a nice little double spike as well. Trigger, unfortunately, not as close to 155 as I would have liked to see it, maybe even 150. Didn't even bounce off the 160 to 175. I think that this is still, yeah, on the other hand, 185 for the sellers here. So there was a slight opportunity in the Ishtar, but again, the bottom was not found as low as I would have liked to see it. And so I would not have made a move on this, but showing that there is trade potential with 10% plus trades easily done on like almost a weekly basis on some of these ships. Next up here, we've got the Manticore slowly working its way down after the previous spike, but I would need to see buy orders below 22 million by quite a bit. And we're just not there yet. That margin is just too low to make anything happen. I think the volumes are still too high on the sellers as well. So I would wait and see. Next up here, we've got the Nemesis, pretty similar situation, dropping down to 19.5, buyers at 18.6. Buyers are starting to dry out. So if maybe at like 18.5, something like that, which is where on the chart right here, you know, if those final orders here get taken out, then you could probably make a good move on the Nemesis, buying a couple, waiting for a good opportunity to sell them for more than 20 million. And then that's probably not all that bad. Next up here, we've got the Oneros. That's lovely. Did I say the Oneros was in buying opportunity last week? I'd need to go back and check on the Tech 2 department, but I definitely think so. And here is that lovely spike. So let's say you could have bought them for 140 to 145. I think that's not unrealistic. Current sellers, 190 million. So 185, easy 40 million profit could have been made on Onero's trades right here. Of course, not 100 Oneroses, so not like 4 billion in profits all of a sudden, but 40 million on a trade in less than a week for a single product, I think is not bad. And logistics cruisers are showing some volatility once again. That's very good news. I think they're coming back in vogue. In nullsec, you need smaller fleets, so you need the best logistics there. And sometimes that's going to be a logistics cruiser. So very nice opportunity that was spotted right here. I think last week, if you made a move on it, I did not, because I was actually a little bit busy with other stuff. But the potential trade here, absolutely awesome. Making 40 to 50 million is on a single ship would have been pretty damn good. Next up here, we've got the Purifier also settling down towards 18 million, but where are the buyers? 17 million, honestly, that's starting to be pretty good as well. Starting to dry up. You probably won't get to, you could, you know, it's just 3 more orders at 17 million that need to be filled. Then you're dropping down to 16.2, which is, I think, definitely a very good price for Purifier. So keep an eye on that. If these do get sold by impatient sellers, then you're probably looking at a very good buy opportunity all of a sudden at like 16.3, 16.4, something like that. That is right here on the chart, right on the triggers as well for some volatility. Potentially that could be pretty good. Next up here, we've got the Scimitar. Only logistics cruisers that seem to be going down. I would need it to be way lower than this though. Buy orders below 130 would be good, but zero margin on this. So unfortunately, the Scimitar, we need to wait for this to play out to expect some more volatility. And then here's the Vengeance, again dropping to 19 million. But all of this is just a little bit too slow, too gradual for my taste. I don't like the assault frigates for trades. Yeah, I don't know what you think about these, but I just don't feel like they're ever gonna kick in that much, because unlike stealth bombers, you tend to lose huge fleets of stealth bombers, but assault frigates, no, you'd maybe go for interceptors or something like that. They're just not that in the meta at the moment. I think that you can risk big trades on them. So that's it for Tech 2 market. Some interesting stuff there, I think. Let's move on to the Tech 3. 27 minutes for that. 2700. Again, I'll start with the destroyers, and going for a 6-month chart. I think we'll see a little bit more on that. Here's the Confessor, dropped as low as 34 million. Now it's back up to 48 million, where we were 6 months ago. So quite a bit of retracing as well. Why is this happening? I had an interesting theory on the last video, I think. Which was due to all of the Tech 3s really going up in price all of a sudden. It is that we're starting to see some cartel formation in wormhole space. I think it's definitely possible if you can like control a majority of really the best C6, C5 wormholes, then you could have some cartel formation. You could force the price of these goods to go up. And that could be happening at the moment. So Confessor going up to 48 million in a double jump from its bottom at 34 is quite substantial. And is this due to cartel forming? We'll take a look at that, because it's going to be one of the extra products is nano ribbons that was suggested. I definitely want to take a look at that theory right here. But the Confessor seems to point that out. It's been traded for 34 million for quite a while with huge supply, and now we still see huge supply, 106, 101, 31, 30, all of this like 2 days old. Compare that to the volumes of like maybe 100 to 120, it's still absolutely huge, but the price is going up despite that. So it could be indeed cartel formation. I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities. Next up here, we've got the Hecate, also went down towards 35 million, but then the market said no, and we're going back up towards 50, 55 million, despite the fact that you see 41, 68, and all of these are new sell orders as well, including these 50 and these 170. So they're just being brought to the market at higher prices. I think it is definitely possible that people are forcing these prices up. Which is unfortunate, because these were very fun tactical destroyers that you could easily afford and then lose. Very fun to play with, very powerful ships, used a lot in nullsec. So here I think people are trying to make some money. Next up, we've got the jackdaw, very similar, up to 55 million. What's the supply looking like? Yeah, 121, 13, 15, 17, 14. You would see lower prices, not higher prices with these numbers, but we're not. So again, looking quite a bit like we have some cartel formation. Here is 50 million bouncing off of that. Probably see huge numbers here. Absolutely 276, 16, 48, 26, 31. Huge numbers here. I think that the pressure could be on because there is absolutely a massive amount of production capability in wormhole space at the moment, and so maybe a little bit of internal conflict, a little bit of opportunistic behavior could dampen the price. But this is clearly a natural move up, considering that we've never seen a complete dry up except for last week, where pretty much everything was just bought out. So I think that this could be short-lived, but if it is cartel formation, we could see this come back again and again in different chips, trying to keep the price up by withholding production or just making sure that everyone does put them at the same price, puts up the ship at the same price, things like that. It's going to be interesting because it does show that the Tech Tree market is coming alive once again. So we do see some different stuff finally. Here's the Legion, went up to 170, working its way down, but ever so slowly. We're not seeing a huge flood of Legions coming in here. So that's pretty interesting. You would think with a spike like this that there would be huge production trying to sell this. It's just not happening here when we look at these numbers. Here is the Loki chart then, went up to 200 million, again some pressure on that. People are competing here, going down to 188 million. It's going to be interesting to see where everything settles down, I think. Next up, we've got a Proteus spiking up to 220, went down to 210, but here it is hesitating. And again, all the orders are on the 222 mark here. Could be some relisting or something like that happening because we did drop off to 210 on the chart, but we're back up above 220. So it's definitely strange. Here's the Tengu. That one apparently went up to 200 million, but was unstoppably moved back down to 180. And we're currently selling them for 177. And there is a bit of competition coming in here on the sell orders for the Tengu. Maybe the wallet was empty by this one to really rebuy everything and put them back up at higher prices once again or something like that. Or maybe they're just gonna let a few go to show some normal market behavior or something like that. But I think it's a possibility that there is some cartel formation, some manipulation, and not just like all of a sudden all Tech Tree ships were bought out of JITA due to one or two big alliances. No, I don't think that is exactly what happened here. It could definitely be some manipulation going on here, especially if you look at what's happening with the price of the tactical destroyers despite the huge supply of these ships. So very damn interesting. And for the extra materials now, 32.55 is what I'll take for that. So melted nano ribbons is the first one. And yeah, that's because my keyboard is actually not a European one, so I have to press different buttons. But here is melted nano ribbons, and that has definitely indeed gone up very substantially from 2.4 million up to 4.4 million. I bought some quite a while ago, like I think at 3.5 or something like that, or maybe 3 million on a downward trend somewhere. So it's gonna be time for me, I think, to unload these. But this is clearly pretty much doubled in price under my nose in about 2 months time. So that will obviously have a big impact on the Tech Tree production, the price, the cost of producing stuff. But is there a real reason for that, considering that, I mean, there's been one major war around one wormhole in wormhole space, but do we think that production of melted nano ribbons has halved? I personally don't think so, and so this again could be an indication that there is some manipulation of the Tech Tree market at the moment, and I'm gonna take advantage of that, and I'm gonna dump my melted nano ribbon stocks for a bit of profit here, because I don't think that it's actually going to last that long. At some point that increase in production is gonna put that pressure back on there. They're gonna want to sell their stocks, and then I think that we will see all of this pull back and come back down once they've bloated their coffers enough, I guess. And then the other suggestion was the gecko, something that gets suggested almost every week. Just because it is, of course, this very unusual one that keeps going up in price. It is something unique, something that is not being produced in the game anymore. So they spiked up to 120 million. Now they did come back. So what I think happened here is that after a big loss, again, the price spiked back up, but someone that was holding their stock said, okay, that's good enough for me. I made enough money on the geckos and I'm bringing them all to the market, selling them off here. So they're going for 95 million on the sellers, 93 million for the buyers. Pretty small margin. People are still speculating that they're going back up. Of course, one thing to keep in mind, the day CCP brings those back, then all of that will be wiped out. And thinking about it right now, I'm thinking I'm gonna sell what I have. No, I'm gonna keep at least a few flights of them, but I'm gonna sell the few ones that I speculated on before Christmas, I think, because Christmas gift could become a gecko if CCP thinks that, well, 120 for a gecko is starting to become a little bit too low. So you never know when that happens. Be careful if you're investing in these geckos. But yeah, of course, these are going up in price drastically. Whenever another freighter with 100 geckos gets destroyed, they come back to the forefront, and you can see it's just going up, going up, going up. But here someone did take profit at like 120 to 130, which I think was not a bad move personally, because at some point I think they will come back. Maybe with the capital rebalance, something like that. We could see like these heavy attack drones find their own new I think they're twice as big as an ogre, so maybe the CCP could still do something with the gecko. You never know when this increase in price here is going to end, when the geckos will actually reduce in value, because more could come to the market. Keep all of that in mind, please, if you're speculating on geckos. I wouldn't want you to all of a sudden lose like 90% of those assets because you were not prepared for that. Anyways, that's it for this Eve Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.